Madam Clerk.
Our first presentation this evening is the Arts and Culture Center Preliminary Design Presentation, Madam Mayor.
So we're really looking forward to tonight's council meeting. There will be a lot of discussion about future. And I'd like to turn to Mr. Marc Boileau to introduce this particular presentation. Mr. Boileau.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to introduce GRC, and I'm going to follow that up with just mentioning a few names in addition to GRC who are here this evening. So the two individuals, two architects with GRC who are with us are Martin Tite, who is a principal with GRC, as well as Jennifer Heaney, who is an associate with GRC, and both have been working considerably with our entire team to develop the plans that will be shown this evening. After the presentation by Martin and Jennifer, Jamie Fothrop will provide a draft operating budget, which is at the last page of the document that has been provided to you. I just want to quickly take this opportunity to thank a few other people. So there is a committee that has been assisting. It's the Arts Center Steering Committee members, and so I want to name off the non-city members because they've been very helpful to us. One was, the first would be Councillor Elaine McDonald, who of course is councillor. She's also, and many of these represent different organizations, and I'll just quickly run through that. Councillor McDonald is also with the Arts Collective and is a visual artist. Frank Burrell is with the Seaway Valley Theatre Company as a board member and is an actor, a videographer, and a cartoonist. Glenn Forrester is a musician and sound technician. Katie Burke is with Vagabond Theatre, is a director and an actress. Mario Gagnon is the president of L'Amalgame. Rose Desnoyers is with Focus Art and visual artist, and Susan Powell is the founder of the Powell School of Dance. So you can see that there's a broad spectrum of representation who have assisted with the different features and so on. I also want to recognize the Fundraising Committee, who have done a tremendous amount of work, led by Ms. Katie Burke and Mr. Brian Lynch. Their goal, of course, as we all know, is $1 million, and I was updated today by Mr. Lynch that they're at $875,076. And I think it's fairly impressive that they've been able to do that, of course, through COVID and without the incredible visuals that we now have from the architects. So I expect that their work should be a little bit easier going now that they have the tools that will be presented this evening. And so with that, I'll turn it over to our presenters.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'll start.
You'll start.
Yes, I'm Martin Tite from GRC Architects. I'm principal of the firm, and as Mark said, I'm here with Jennifer Heaney, who's an associate in our office. And to be honest, Jen has done the heavy lifting on this job, so I'm just going to keep my remarks very short. It's been just a pleasure working with the Cornwall team, and we've also enjoyed the participation of the community in the project that has helped shape what this thing is. So on that, I'll hand it over to Jen.
Thanks, Martin.
Welcome.
Thank you. Martin and I are both very pleased to be here tonight to present the pre-designed package for the Cornwall Arts and Culture Center. Our presentation will start with a brief overview of the steering committee engagement session that was hosted by Zoom last summer. We'll walk through the proposed design for modifying 159 Pitt Street into a new arts and culture center, and take a look at some proposed interior and exterior views. Next, we'll review some preliminary estimate numbers in comparison to the previous design proposals. And lastly, Jamie will provide an overview of the potential operational costs associated with the new facility. So in June, our design team brought together the 12 members of the steering committee in a virtual engagement session to solicit feedback on the conceptual designs previously prepared and to establish a prioritized list of desired amenities. This feedback was collected in a report and informs the current program for the Arts and Culture Centre. The session included a series of activities designed to obtain creative and insightful feedback to address the multi-dimensional function of the new Arts Centre. The slide shows a structured brainstorming activity where participants considered each of the 8 guiding principles that were defined through earlier research. That's the 2016 report on the Cultural Centre. The activity elicited a variety of considerations that were generally categorized into 7 key criteria that should be considered in the design. So we have them listed here as inclusivity, accessibility, amenity, acoustics, programming, promotions, and media. The group also contributed through an unstructured brainstorming activity that generated a comprehensive list of functions which the new center might be able to support. And then a series of small group interviews were held to help inform the requirements for each of these functions, the building requirements to support these functions. The session concluded by asking participants to each list 3 key takeaways for the design team that will contribute to the success of the new Art Center. And this graphic highlights some of the words that were repeated over and over again by different members of the committee. So you can see flexibility, multi-purpose, accessibility. These really stand out as features that we want to emphasize in the design of this center. So the information that we collected through the activities, together with some comments on what works and doesn't work with the previous fit test arrangement, inform the following approach to the design of the new facility. And we'll go through some of the drawings. Here we have an aerial view of the existing building at 159 Pitt Street. 2nd Street is along the top of this image with Pitt Street running north-south, and the yellow block is the subject property. The building is currently made up of the original 2-story Bank of Montreal building, former Bank of Montreal building, with 2 one-story additions at the back and parking off of St. John's Lane at the back of the site. The preferred option from the previous fit test feasibility study proposed the demolition of just this last portion and the addition of a 2-story multipurpose room on the back. Through our design process, we found there were a lot of constraints in terms of access and adjacencies within the building by adding the performance space to the back of the building. And that by demolishing both additions, a much better arrangement of spaces can be achieved. So hopefully I can demonstrate this as we progress through the design. We're also proposing full demolition of the ground and 2nd floor levels. Presently, there's several steps up from Pitt Street to the ground floor level, which really compromises the barrier-free access and accessibility to this building. The new floor level would be constructed to match the sidewalk at the front of the building and eliminate any need for ramps or lifts, which by virtue of their own construction would require quite a bit of modification to the existing ground floor level. Also, the new floor construction will be non-combustible, which is a building code requirement for the assembly occupancy proposed for this building. Here we have the proposed site plan. The original stone facade remains on Pitt Street, and the main entrance to the Arts and Culture Centre is, as it currently is, off of the street. The roof of the double-height multipurpose room will align with the roof level of the existing 2-story portion. And beyond that is a 1-story portion of the building with a new basement area below. The site slopes from Pitt Street up towards St. John's Lane. So we've indicated a loading ramp at the back, which would be used to access the new lowered floor level. Here we have the ground floor plan. You'd enter through a new glass portico that would replace the existing stone portico into an enclosed vestibule. Guests would arrive in a spacious foyer with over 13-foot ceilings as a result of dropping the floor level. The designers and the committee members felt it was quite important to make this foyer large enough to be able to support the patrons that would be arriving and leaving from a performance, encourage some socialization and lingering within the building. So we really pushed the design to make this foyer as welcoming and open as possible. The dash line is indicating an opening in the floor level above to create a sense of connection between the two levels. Off the foyer, there is a flexible room that could be used to support functions in the foyer space, as well as be used as an office or touchdown space for facility staff. Beyond that is a washroom area with gender-neutral individual stalls with both the toilet and sink fixture in each stall, a universal washroom, janitor room, and then around the other side we have an elevator to the second floor. This next space is the multi-purpose room. It's accessed from either side of the core through a sound and light vestibule. The 2,700 square foot room has been designed for flexibility. Here it's shown in an end stage configuration, but this seating system is all demountable, so the chairs could be folded up and taken away. The risers would all be put on carts and taken out of the space, and the curtains could come down to leave you with a fully open space to reconfigure as needed. As a theater space, the capacity ranges from 110 to 130 persons, depending on the configuration. The space could also accommodate banquets or receptions for about 100 people. Opposite the guest entrances at this end of the space are doors to the back of house area. This is the single-story portion of the building that we saw on the site plan. Here we have a crossover corridor, dressing rooms with washrooms and showers, a green room, a staff washroom, and a temporary storage zone for props and equipment. Sets and furnishings are moved into the building through a loading vestibule at the back, or they can be brought up from the basement storage area using a freight elevator in this location. The basement has been sized to the maximum extent allowable for a single exit. In this drawing, we've laid out storage for the chairs and risers, banquet tables, and a series of 10 by 10 cages along the back that could be used for potential rental opportunities in the community. At the front of the building, this is the existing basement below the original two-story building. Over half of it is currently crawl space, and with the lowered floor level above, this would become unusable space and would be closed off. The remainder of it, the floor slab would be dropped to provide adequate headroom for the building service spaces in this area. On the second floor, you can see the large floor opening to below, provide a sense of spaciousness and connection on both levels. At the front, there are two studio spaces that can be combined by opening a movable partition. Individually, they're about 320 square feet. Overall, the original second floor area is almost doubled in order to accommodate the location of the multipurpose room below, so we gain a bit of floor space on the second level. There's a production booth that overlooks the multipurpose room and an electrical room that's dedicated to the performance space. Also on this level, we have some washrooms to support the functions up here. On the roof, we've proposed a large skylight, that's what this is here, would be located over that double height space to bring natural light into the foyer. And we're also proposing glazing at the transition between this high roof level and the low roof level, with windows into the multipurpose room to provide some natural light into that space. These sectional perspectives demonstrate some of the different volumes with the crawl space area, basement, the large foyer at the studios above, and then a view into the multipurpose hall. This longitudinal section gives a good sense of the relationship of spaces. This is Pitt Street over here. Entering into the foyer, you can see the connection between the two levels here, the service core, the multipurpose room, and the relationship to the back of house amenities. Here we have some interior views. These are very early renderings. There's still a lot of work to be done in terms of materials and finishes and that sort of thing, but it gives you a sense of the quality of space that we would like to achieve. This the center view looks back towards Pitt Street. This is the vestibule entrance, and the exit stairs over in the corner, and this last view looks towards the multipurpose room within the foyer. An elevation of the St. John's Lane side of the building shows some of the other features I spoke about, the clerestory glazing into the multipurpose space, which you can see here in this view. We would provide closed secure garbage storage and access for moving equipment and sets into the building. The Pitt Street elevation shows some of the interventions at the stone facade that will give the building an updated presence on the streetscape. A transparent glass vestibule will signal the new identity as an arts and culture center, together with some poster boards and new lighting to animate the facade. We've also lowered the windowsills to enhance the relationship between the people on the street and the activities inside the building. And finally, we have some exterior views during the day and with it illuminated in the evening. Now I'll provide an overview of the Class C cost estimate for this work and compare it to the high-level numbers that you would have last seen for this project with the 2018 fit test report. The Class C cost estimate includes for new construction, including the fit-up of the theater space, which is often set aside as a separate budget for these projects. It includes site development and all of the areas of demolition that are proposed in the design we just saw. The demolition number also includes for the work associated with designated substance removals. The next few numbers, general requirements, design and pricing allowance, construction allowance, these are all to take into consideration some of the items of the budget that aren't represented on the drawings, like the contractor's costs, some further development of the design and escalation. So I would like initially to just look at this first number in combination with this number down here, additional cost of special foundations. The geotechnical investigations have indicated that the soils in this area are quite poor, and there's going to be some cost associated with building on this site. So the cost estimators have proposed a range of $80,000 to $180,000 for this work. We'd like to err on the side of caution and consider the high end of these numbers at this point in time. So fit test scenario C addresses the demolition of the two additions, and it compares most closely with the current design. So this is the cost estimate from that scenario. We know that this estimate did not include for the designated substance removal or the fit-up of the theater equipment. So if we were to do a quick comparison, taking the numbers from the Class C estimate on the previous slide and combine them, we subtract the cost of the designated substance and the production fit-up that are not included in this number, and we come with a number that is really quite comparable to the earlier cost. For that price, we are also adding additional square footage on the second floor level as well as the basement area. If we look at it a different way, did that change? And start with the total number with all of these contingencies included, we have a number of 5.6 thousand. We can add to that the cost of constructing on the poor soils, the cost of the designated substance, and the production fit up, and come with a number of 6.78. Our cost estimators that have indicated that the escalation of construction costs from 2018 to 2021 should be about 9%. So when we factor that in, we again come very close to that initial budget number. The poor soils and the designated substances could not reasonably be considered at the feasibility stage of a project. We feel that this additional information that we now have in hand, combined with the escalating cost of construction, results in a higher Class C number, but through this type of analysis, it compares quite closely to those original numbers. So now I'll hand it over to Jamie to review some of the ongoing operational costs.
Thanks, Jen. So I'll take you through this draft operational budget for the Arts Centre. We'll start with our revenue projections. Previously, I should say, we started with the operational budget that was included originally in the 2016 feasibility study that recommended an addition to the Civic Complex to be the home of the new Arts and Culture Centre. So we've started with some of their numbers, and looking at some of the amenities that are in this new preliminary design, we're able to sort of use some of those numbers and apply them to these rentable spaces to try and estimate revenue. So we're starting with the black box theater, or the multi-purpose room rental. We're estimating $30,000 in revenue for that. The next item is audience ticketed events. Now you'll see it says facility share. A lot of these events it's a shared event between a promoter and the city. So we're estimating approximately $15,000 revenue as the city share for those events. School and other ticketed events would be sort of daytime activity in that space, estimated at $5,000. The reception room rental is the front foyer, in which we're estimating $16,000. The upstairs studio room rentals for both rooms, we're estimating $20,000. City-run programming, so arts and culture programming delivered by the city, we're estimating almost $35,000. And ticketed art exhibitions, estimating $15,000. So a total estimated revenue of $136,500. The next item is salaries and benefits. In this, we've included or estimated the cost of, we expect to have a coordinator that would run the programming in this facility, but also other support staff, custodial and clerk security staff. So with a full-time salary range of $70,000 with part-time salaries of $100,000 and benefits of $47,000. So a total of almost $218,000 for salaries and benefits. Comparable to similar city buildings, similar size city buildings, we've estimated some items under purchase of goods, such as salt, building materials, janitorial materials, and equipment supplies, a combined estimate of $12,700. The next section is services and rents. More the utilities, a lot of the utility costs in here. Electricity at $25,000, natural gas at $15,000, water at $3,000, communications at $5,000, contracted services for $20,000, waste disposal for $2,000, and snow removal for $2,000, a combined cost of $72,000. Lastly, under the financial section, we expect IT hardware, software, licensing requirements for an estimated cost of $3,500, which leaves us with a net operating deficit of about close to $170,000.
Thank you. Council, questions for the consultants, architects, or city staff? Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I want to thank all of you for the presentation, and it's truly exciting. I'd like to go through some of the points in greater detail, but since we ended on the last page, I guess I'll start there. So the questions to you, Jamie. Initially, when I look at these numbers, I just think, especially on the revenue side, I'm very conscious of the fact that fees can be an effective lock on a door. So given the fact that obviously people will pay for the use they make of the building, I hope that our fee structure is going to be obviously open to as broad a possible participation as we can. And I wonder if you can say anything about that.
For sure, through you, Madam Mayor. 100% right in, we do not want cost to be a barrier to access the facility. Similar to our sports recreation facilities, recovering the true cost is just not necessarily feasible, as it would just be too high and result in the facility not getting used, which would be a real shame. So what we've done is tried to develop rates that where we think are appropriate, looked at other similar sized facilities, comparable facilities in Eastern Ontario, and realizing that we're typically similar to our sports recreation facilities on, when comparing to Ottawa and Kingston, we're typically on the low end of that spectrum. So we've come up with a fee schedule where it's still very draft at the moment, but that it's intended to make it such that it is accessible, but it will require further investigation as we approach our operational date.
Great, and I'm happy to hear you compare it to our sports facilities, for example, because obviously what we're doing there, I believe, works across the city. So hopefully this will as well. So another question has to do with the, you mentioned the word coordinator when you talked about the staffing. So I guess I'd like you to talk about that a little bit. Are you thinking, for example, of an artistic director or, an executive director? What are your thoughts there? Because it seems to me we know we want this to be a community resource, but we also want to be able to feature art that's going to draw people from the surrounding area as well as Cornwall too. So can I have your thoughts on that coordinator position?
For sure, through you, Madam Mayor. I should say also the 2016 feasibility study came up with, had some governance models presented in there and some recommendations as well. And depending on the size of the facility, some facilities can be sort of run by community groups, where as you get into the larger size facilities, it becomes more common or more recommended to be city-run. And so that's what the assumption we've made with this, this budget. But we do expect to have a non-unionized individual, I use the title coordinator, but to program the space, whether that be the visual arts on the walls or children's camps during the summer times or March break or Christmas, whether it's reaching out to promoters to bring in shows, and that's where we end up with those audience ticketed events, whether there's a facility share and a promoter share. And one of the comments we heard during our public engagement where they don't want it to be simply just the Cornwall Arts Center. They want it to be a community hub for arts and culture for the entire region. And so to be sort of a bit of a home base for if people want to come and find out what is going on in the community, where can they access different arts and culture programming in all of Cornwall and SDNG, that they would look to come to here, and we'd have somebody staffed there to be able to provide those recommendations.
Okay. And I guess I want to comment on that our city's got a long history of providing very successful recreation facilities and programs, but not so much for the arts. So I hope that nothing will be written in stone initially, that you'll be very flexible in your hires and in your allocation of responsibilities and that sort of thing, because we might not get it right immediately, but we want the flexibility to get there as fast as we possibly can. So you don't have to comment on that, that's just my wish. So some other questions then. I think the prospect of a glassed-in front entrance is very exciting, and because one of the comments that so many people made, people who are tuned into architecture, were about the addition to the front of the bank building, how it took away from the architecture. So that's gone, I guess, in your drawings. Excellent. So do you want to talk a little bit about that? Is it going to be, it's a totally glassed-in entranceway? And
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, so we would be completely removing the stone portico. Because of the proximity to the sidewalk, the glassed entranceway wouldn't have doors. It would be more of a shelter, a roofed enclosed shelter, but then the doors opening into the building would be beyond that at the stone facade. I mean, we don't want doors swinging out into the sidewalk traffic. We don't want sliding doors that are going to open every time someone goes by. So it really is a feature that's there both to provide a bit of cover at the exterior door, but also to liven up the building and make it look like something new is happening there.
yeah, great. And I love what you've done with the windows too, showing them as obviously displaying what's going on inside, making it, great eye candy in the front of the building, and the poster boards between the windows. Excellent. I'm wondering how you're going to manage, I know you've got street level entranceway, but the back of this building currently, it must be going to be changed totally, because like currently, that's our accessible entrance, and you actually go down a ramp. So this is going to be one level from front to back, but obviously the floor at the back is not going to be the floor we know there now, right?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's correct. We're indicating an exterior ramp, so the grade can slope from St. John's Lane down to a lower door entry level, and then the ground floor level will be at one height throughout.
Excellent. And obviously, the basement at the front is not going to connect to the basement at the back. It's just, they don't communicate, right?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. So then, would you talk a little bit more about the skylight? Does this go right from sky to ground floor? And what effect does it have on the second floor space? Because I gather from your remarks is the greatest portion of visual art display space on the second floor and behind the that barrier behind the skylight and the chicken booth and all that. Maybe if you could make that a little bit clearer for me, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. I'll just go back to the floor plans, or maybe this section. Through you, Madam Mayor, the skylight is an opportunity to brighten the interior space. We discussed with the steering committee that natural light is a good thing. It for health reasons, there are many reasons to have natural light in the space. the second floor windows would be essentially within the studio room, so there would be no, with the buildings on either side, there are no other opportunities to bring light in at that level. So the skylight is an idea of bringing light to the second floor, so it doesn't feel so interior, but also just brightening the foyer and drawing your eye up through the space, enhancing kind of the sense of height in the room. When we talked about natural light with the steering committee members with regards to the artwork, there didn't seem to be a significant concern. But we can continue to visit that. There are UV filters and different sorts of ways of treating glass to accommodate the art. But as we get into more detailed design, we'll definitely consider the impacts and if it poses any limitations on this display in that space.
Okay, well, I agree with you. Natural light is a really important factor if we can possibly accommodate it. But I'm wondering if the windows that I've seen in the display, not on this shot, but a previous slide, is that going to conflict with the need for total darkness in a theater? Like, for example, a black box theater, like all theaters, has to be able to shut out lights entirely. Will this one be able to in spite of the windows?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that is the intent. There are blackout blinds that are within a track and can fully block the light from the windows. We're confident that won't be an issue. From the earlier research, the fact that this is a black box theater, we can accommodate that function through draping, through the blackouts on the windows. But the space will also function for other events, for banquets, for trade shows. I don't know, we don't want to put any limitations on it. And again, the natural light will just enhance the environment for those sorts of things.
That's great. So really, I think we're getting the best of both worlds there in terms
Exactly.
of blackout and illumination. So I think that's all the questions I have right now, Madam Mayor, but I might put my hand up again if I
Oh, Councillor
see something
McDonald.
else.
It's a
Thank
good thing
you.
it's International Women's Day.
Am I right, eh? Thank you.
I have Councillor Hollingsworth next.
Thank you, Your Worship. A couple of questions, perhaps to Mr. Fawthrop to start. This 170,000, is that relatively firm or sort of firm, or just you thought you needed to put some numbers in so you came up with your best guess?
At this moment, through you, Madam Mayor, no, this is our a realistic estimate that we've come up with, but I will qualify that a little bit to say that it's not sort of similar to the Benson Centre, in which we were shutting down 2 rinks and relocating certain activities, so you know certain activities are taking place elsewhere, so you can really get a firm grasp as to, on the type of activities going to take place here. With this facility, there isn't one that operates like it in Cornwall, and so it's brand new, and so we're trying to estimate or guess as to what, you know, as Councillor McDonald points out, you know, what is a palatable hourly rate to rent these spaces. Trying to estimate those, and it's I'll be honest, it was difficult. We started with the feasibility study and looked at some of those numbers to see how they could be applied here. But one thing that with the Benson Centre construction that staff said they during the time that they did not foresee was the interest in the meeting rooms. They said they never would have guessed that the meeting rooms would have generated the revenue that they generate. But because we didn't have meeting rooms like that were available to the public. So birthday parties and wedding showers are extremely popular. Anyone who's tried to rent the automotive room at the Benson Centre will quickly learn that it's one of our most sought after amenities there. So there are things like that are really tough to predict, but I can tell you, we've spent a fair bit of time with this. We're fairly confident with it, and I wouldn't bet my firstborn son that these numbers are going to be
Please
exact,
don't do
but
that, yeah.
I'm going to say they're to the best of our ability at this stage.
Yeah, we don't need any firstborn sons. I've got one of my own. So, did we look, and when you're trying to put together cost, I appreciate the circumstances you're in. Did you look at any other arts centers in other municipalities to try to cross-reference them and say, well, if Brockville is costing them for this, I mean, I realize Brockville, Cornwall are not necessarily the same municipalities, but did you look at any other municipalities comparable size with art centers to say, this is what they're doing, so realistically we can assume that's close for us?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think that we toured a number of art centers, and I'll say each one's a little different, has different amenities. And so I don't think each facility is going to necessarily have a comparable budget. What we did do, though, is look at these other facilities to see what rates they were using to rent out their space. We looked at the sort of usability sort of rates that we saw in the original feasibility study we commissioned and applied those rates to that.
Okay. Couple more questions on the budget, Your Worship, with your, that contracted services, what type of contracted services are we talking about? Just a couple of examples.
Yep, through you, Madam Mayor, all our buildings typically have a contracted services line item, so it could be plumbers, electricians, any kind of maintenance work that needs to be done. Quite often, sometimes it's contracted security guards fall under that line item as well.
Okay. And this is a bit of a, I don't mean to be nitpicking on this one, but just out of curiosity, question, Your Worship, to Mr. Clark. On that line item with salaries and benefits, Mr. Clark, it was always my understanding that benefits are about 20%. Well, if you look at that salary, you're $170,000. We budgeted $47,000, but 20%, if I'm not mistaken, is only $32,000, $33,000. Why would we budget that? I realize it's fairly insignificant in the grand scheme of things, but I'm just curious as to why we would budget for a considerably higher number, or am I missing something?
Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was not involved with the budgeting of the sheet there, so maybe Ms. Bailey would be the better one to
Whoever wants to give it a whirl.
to answer. But we traditionally have our benefits anywhere, we would probably put them around 30 or 35%.
35. Okay, then that technically answers the question.
However, I was about to say that depends on what the benefit level is. If it is a payment in lieu, it would be vastly different. So sometimes we offer a percentage of pay in lieu of a benefit, and when we talk about our benefits, just for standard
So
employment.
20% is no longer a really relevant term, period, right? Just for my own records?
I haven't used it, but
Okay.
I don't know the context in which it was
Fair
put
enough.
in.
Thank you. One more question, Your Worship, if I might. Looking at the design, and forgive me if I don't know quite what I'm trying to get a handle on page, I don't know, I guess the second page of your presentation, it's kind of the boxes where we have all the different color codes, the I guess, grid, if you would. There's a reference there to education. So, and am I, like, and then you've got the next page where people did their brainstorming functions should Cornwall Arts Center support. Are we gonna, and I don't see it officially here, part of my page has been kind of cut off. Are we gonna, like, offer, like, lessons for, say, people who want to play musical instruments and people who want to do visual arts or anything else that falls into the arts realm? Or, like, do we have anything in the actual space set aside for those types of functions?
Mr. Fothrop?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. I guess it's very similar to what we do at the Benson Center in that we will retain the services of a tennis instructor, for instance, and pay them an honorarium to deliver tennis lessons at the Benson Center. So and it all depends on the availability of instructor and the skill set. As you can imagine, we don't necessarily have staff in-house that would be able to do music lessons or dance lessons or theater lessons. But under our budgeted item where we talk about city-run programming, those are types of opportunities in which we're expecting to be able to deliver potentially lessons depending on the availability of instructors.
Fair enough, but what I was kind of getting at is that when I look at the design of the building, so I see my first floor, we've got the theater, change rooms and that kind of thing, fair enough, a foyer, mezzanine, and then the second story, you've got these studios, but nowhere in the structure do I see any kind of room set aside specifically, and I'm a bit of somewhat of a hack at the guitar, but when I've done lessons, usually there's kind of separate practice rooms where the instructor and students sit aside away from everybody else. And I don't know about visual art in terms of individual lessons. I am not really sure, but I don't see anything like that in the actual structure of the building. Is there any provision for that, or is it just going to be we'll kind of makeshift it as we go, or like how does that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the original feasibility study that recommended the civic complex as a site did have dedicated music rooms that would be soundproofed, like you're suggesting.
Yes.
As well as a teaching kitchen, different. But when we moved to this facility, space is a premium. And so, multi-use and flexibility is a common theme. And so, yes, there isn't a dedicated music room. There are some versatile spaces that could be used for that, given the right conditions. So if there were a theater production going on in the Black Box Theater, yeah, we wouldn't have somebody doing a drum class upstairs in the studios. But
no saxophone lessons?
No, that's right. But I think, so there, without a doubt, at this location, there are some confines that had to be worked with, and so not all the amenities that were included in the original feasibility study design or concept for the civic complex made it into this preliminary design.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fothrop. Thanks, folks. That being said, Your Worship, I'll reserve my debate for the time when there is for debate. I don't really need to peruse it right now. Thank you for the answers. That's all I need. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Mack.
Jamie, a wise move and not trying to offer your firstborn on your estimate. The person who built this lovely building said that the city was going to make a lot of money on it, and that went off the rails real quick. Actually, the $170,000 deficit, I hate to say that, nobody wants a deficit, but I thought that was a little lower than what we were projecting at one time. I thought we're up around 275, 250.
Through you, Madam Mayor, actually, the feasibility study that showed the complex, it was recommended, or it had a number of $120,000 deficit. Now, it did have a more amenities, so more opportunities for revenue, but also it's attached to an existing facility, so there are some economies there as well, as far as custodial staff, front counter staff as well.
Mm-hmm. There was, I think Dean mentioned Brockville and some of those are really different animals, aren't they? Brockville, I've been there several times, the Arts Center, it's strictly theater, and same with Upper Canada Playhouse. We're talking apples and oranges here, aren't we? Ours isn't going to be on a production of that, like that, where you really make some money.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, that's right. I mean, the theater space we're looking at is about 120 seats. You're right, Brockville Theater is a little more closer to Altsville Theater in that it's I think a full-size theater, yes.
Yeah. When it comes to the staffing, I'll go back to Brockville and Upper Canada. They have very limited staff, probably a smaller staff than what we're planning here. I think they have one manager and everybody else is a volunteer in Brockville, which is a pretty major operation in Upper Canada Village. Was that ever taken into consideration when you went to the arts people in Brockville? It's the arts group that pretty well runs the theater. where they use more volunteers, and we have a hired hand on supervising, and maybe it's some coordination among the arts people that they operate, if there's a show that night, they volunteer, run the theater, or the ticket booth and everything else. Is that ever taken into consideration?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, it hasn't, I guess, at this early stage. I mean, I think we're running with the assumption that we've got one full-time staff position and then some part-time positions for clerk security and custodial.
Okay. The seating, did I hear somebody say that was removable, like they could be in and out? But they are elevated, are they? As I see in that architect drawing? Okay. What would be the
Jennifer?
purpose of taking them out? Does that roll back?
Through you, Madam Mayor. The arts community expressed a desire to not be restricted to a single direction, a single setup. So if it were the type of seating system that could roll back and come out, then it can only happen at that one end of the room. What we're proposing is a series of platforms they're like 4-foot by 8-foot platforms that would be stacked and configured as required, and then your chairs sat on top of them. You would want to take them away perhaps to set the room up for a banquet or a dance or something like that.
Okay, so it's pretty versatile.
Yes.
That's good. The foyer, did I see a ticket booth in there? Where would your ticket booth be?
Just go to the drawing. Through you, Madam Mayor. We've proposed this space off of the foyer. We wanted to keep it as open and, again, flexible as possible. So ticketing could happen from this space. It would likely be something that is rolled out or some sort of counter. Also, when we spoke with the steering committee, a lot of the ticketing is done virtually, is done online. There's less of a requirement to have that kind of physical interaction, but there's enough room in the space to kind of facilitate it on a temporary basis.
Okay. There was once a theater in this town called the Capitol Theater, and it was, in its day, was quite the place. And there was a ticket booth there that they took out, and that ticket booth has been somewhere in captivity. And it's always been that if we ever had an arts center, that ticket booth would be part of it. Did you ever consider that, or has anybody ever tracked down the ticket booth, or is it still in town, or what?
Mr. Fothrop?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, we are aware of the Capitol Theatre ticket booth, and I think as the design progresses, we will be going to look at some of the I guess, salvaged pieces from the Capitol Theatre to see if there is a suitable location to incorporate into this design. But we haven't had a chance to look at that.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, do we know where the ticket booth is, and do we have access to it?
I believe, and Councillor McDonald may correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, is it at the library?
Yes. If I may, through you, Madam Mayor. It exists. It's in the basement of the public library. I've seen it, and it's available to us if it's appropriate, if we should use it.
I definitely think it should be incorporated. Maybe you folks weren't aware of it at the time, but we've been looking for a place for that ticket booth for the last 30 years.
I think there's a washroom door or two as well.
Yeah, so anyway, it certainly would, put a bit of history in there. Okay, thanks.
Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you. I'm thrilled to see this. I ran for council originally in 2010, and it became very apparent during that campaign that arts and culture should be a focus, and an arts center should be a focus. And while I was unsuccessful in my run at that time, shortly after that, the Culturescape plan came out, and there was a bunch of next steps, and the Culture Plan Committee was created, and Councillor McDonald sat on that committee as well, and many members of staff, and we kind of ticked off all the next steps, and some groups got involved and took them off for us, which was great. But it was always the Arts Center, the last one was the big one. And it just seemed like such a dream back then, and there were so many people involved that are involved today. Like you mentioned Rose Denoyer earlier, Elaine, Councillor McDonald, and I can remember her back then saying, oh, I don't know if this is ever going to happen, and I'm going, yeah, it's going to happen, and we had this conversation, and to see her, for me, I like to watch this happen kind of through her eyes, because she was so frustrated at the time, 10 years ago, and to now see her involved in the final steps is kind of fun for me to watch. Many other people as well, but for her, for me, it's her that was always the person I kept in mind over the years. I can remember that feasibility study when it happened. I believe the council of the day, the committee had recommended we do one, and I think there was 15,000 set aside, and that was very clear that that wasn't going to cut it. And the CAO at the time, Norm Levac, found money within his own budget, the CAO's budget, to top that up to, I think, 50,000 to get a really good feasibility study done. And that seemed to be the kickoff to getting the arts and culture community rallied around it. And I find since that time, all these groups started to believe in it and got more involved. And it just kind of took on a life of its own. And nothing really happens until the grassroots get really involved. And that's when they really got involved. And there are so many people, you can't name them all here, that just kind of saw that, you know what, this might happen, and they got excited by it, and they're involved. And you look at the steering committee, the names that were mentioned, these are the people that have been fighting for one for a long, long time. So it's been really, really encouraging for me to see it. I'm looking forward to attending the first show at this place, and seeing how this is really going to affect the city of Cornwall and the pride that people take in their city. You know, we have the Benson Centre, and it's without a doubt one of the best buildings in Ontario for sports. And smaller communities like ours sometimes have an inferiority complex. Well, this town has really changed in the last 10 years, and I think this is going to be one more step to giving us another reason to be proud of our city. So well done. I'm really excited to see what happens next, and I'm just thrilled to see this report come to us finally. It seems like for me, it's been a 10-year journey, but I'm not anywhere near involved as some of these people. When I met people 10 years ago about this, they were involved for 10, 15 years trying to get this going. So I can just imagine how they're feeling. So this is really exciting. Thanks for everything.
Thanks for your comments, Councillor Bennett. I'm sure that Madame Rose Desnoyers is either watching now or will be watching the broadcast, so appreciate the shout out to her. Councillor Hébert.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not really any questions, but just an opportunity to also express some excitement. This has been a long time coming, and we're still several years away from walking through those doors, but this makes it so real. And just I've read this over the weekend, but walking through the presentation, and I feel like I've got butterflies. It's quite exciting, and I want to congratulate everybody that's been part of it, and Councillor McDonald, who's been championing this for a decade. So congratulations and thank you for everything. But the skylight is such an amazing feature. I really look forward to seeing that. The removable seating is excellent. I was concerned at first when I saw the image that it wasn't removable, because I do envision this space as a multi-purpose space where we can host banquets and rent it for weddings and make more revenue, as I would presume some of those revenue guesstimates were definitely quite conservative because we don't want to over budget. So with such a beautiful space with that natural lighting and a beautiful foyer, I can really see this used up way more than I think we are expecting, just like the meeting rooms at the Benson Centre. And the importance on accessibility. I'm really glad that there's a focus on that, because I would really love one day to take my mère and papa to an afternoon show, and that's critical to a huge pocket of our population, accessibility, and allowing them into a space that can certainly increase their quality of life. And on that note, we look at a deficit, $160,000 deficit, and yes, that's going to be added to the tax base, but municipalities aren't in the business of making money as much as we like to make money to help pay for the things that we offer, but we are in the business of providing services to our residents and increasing their quality of life. And this does this for such a small impact on our tax base. So I'm quite excited to see this come through fruition. I just also a note on the ticket booth. I know that it might not be practical to actually use the ticket booth itself as a ticket booth, but it'd be such a beautiful showpiece at some point or some place within this space to bring back some of that history that unfortunately we can't seem to hang on to as much of as anymore. So I would really love to see that incorporated as well. So looking forward to the future. This is quite exciting. Thank you to all of you.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to start by congratulations to Councillor MacDonald and the respect I have for her for having dug your teeth into this project and really got it to where it is now, and we're almost at the end. They said that, well, it's going to cost too much money, people are afraid about it. They did the same thing with the Benson Centre, and Councillor Grant was one who dug his teeth into that project with a few other people. And Councillor Carr with the Aquatic Centre, they said that wasn't going to be done either. It got done by a whole lot of people in the city that were progressive and wanted to move forward. I'm so glad to have it where it is now, this project where it is now. I thank you for the work you put into it, because I know Dennis Carr and I put a lot of work into the Aquatic Centre to get that done. There's a few things that I didn't see in the report. Is we have $875,000 now, and how does that affect the bottom line? 7 million, or whatever it is, the amount that we're looking at, minus the 875 million, you're looking at about $6,443,000. So, and that doesn't include the folks that have been waiting till this night came, where we had a plan. You could tell them, here's the plan, here's what it's going to look like, here's what it's going to cost. And there are a lot of people that I have spoken to who were just waiting to get that plan before they brought their money forward. That's going to happen. I think we'll reach the million in a hurry now. Just a few kind of simple questions. Do we have the cost for a project manager on this project? Because even a plug in the wrong place in a wall, when you don't have a project manager, could cost you thousands and thousands of dollars. So have we made have we brought the cost into the cost of the center?
Mr. Fothergill?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. When we put out a RFP to retain the architectural services of GRC Architects, an item in that proposal also was to provide the contract administration and support during construction as well.
Yeah, thank you.
So they are on board with us till the end.
Thank you. And the other thing I had noted, here's the black box rental revenue. I'm wondering if the small businesses that want to have meetings at that black box theater was added into the accounts for rentals. I know the shows and the paintings and that kind of stuff is going to bring in rental, but there's also small businesses that can't afford Altsville Theater, but a black box theater would be ideal for them. So has that been calculated in it?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we have established various hourly rental rates for each of the different amenities. So depending on the needs of the group that's looking to rent and the size of the space, it could potentially be accommodated in like you say, the black box theater, or perhaps if it's a smaller area, they need the foyer or the meeting rooms upstairs, which can be combined into one large room. So as well, yeah, those are and comparably priced to the rates that we offer at the Benson Centre.
And having some experience with Altsville Theater and the tickets being bought here at the complex, are we going to make some kind of electronic IT right there at the theater so that people can either come in or use their computers to buy tickets?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, that we would be able to use our Ticket Pro system here and have a station set up at the Arts Centre as well to provide that service on site.
Because doing it the other way and having to come into the complex uses a lot of our manpower, and it's a pain in the butt, to say the least. So if we can get that done, I'd be really glad to see that, because I've dealt with that before. And anyway, thank you, and thank you for all three of you up there and everybody that was involved in bringing this to the council. And I'm looking forward to getting the money in place so we can build it.
Madam CFO, did you want to comment on the use of fundraising dollars and how that would be inserted in the budget?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, so the fundraising will go against the construction costs of the facilities. So when that moves forward, those funds will be used as well as, right now we're looking at financing the balance of the project.
So that amount is not on this budget now?
No, we didn't apply any of that revenue to, this is cost.
Right. Okay, thank you. I'm going to keep going, and then I'm going to come back to you, Councillor McDonald. Did you want to address that?
I would like to, please, because some of the groups who gave us money, for example, the Kinsmen, they have a proviso that their money can't be used for capital costs. But that will be part of the equipment in the sound system or something like that. So just in case any of them are watching, I don't want them to be nervous and thinking we're diverting their funds to capital. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What I see this facility, when I heard it was first bought, we talk about part of our economic development strategic plan is to talk about branding the city. And I like using rebranding rather than branding, because we are known in the past as the armpit of Eastern Ontario, and we are trying to change the image of our community, and we've been so successful with the different amenities that we've added. And this is part of our rebranding exercise. So I'm excited to see this happen, and I think our community is as well. Maybe not everybody, but the majority are. Everybody wasn't happy with the Aquatic Centre or the Benton Centre, but they're proved out to be good attractions to our community. So congratulations to the hard work of the group, and let's move forward.
Thank you. Anybody on screen? Yes, Councillor Bergeron? No, we can't hear you. I thought we had resolved this issue. Can we, Councillor Towndale or Councillor DePel, can you just unmute yourselves? Let's just test. Councillor Towndale? Yeah, no. Okay. Madam Clerk? Would Mr. Makinson be able to assist, or? Meanwhile, I think Councillor McDonald had more questions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a few quick hitters. I gather the vault is gone. Good. I wonder where it's going to go and how we're going to get it out. We'll probably take a crane to do that, but in any case. And another quick one, I'm thrilled that the seats are flexible and portable, but are they also going to be comfortable?
Through you, Madam Mayor. This is something that will have to be resolved as the design develops and these sorts of things are specified. There's a wide variety of seating that can be purchased, and yes, we would like to have them as comfortable as possible.
Okay. Yeah. Good. And then a last thought, and I don't expect you to give an answer right now, but you've probably got a lot of experience with this. We've, in the various committees I'm on, we've talked about ways to recognize donors without using up the precious wall space on which we want to hang paintings, for example. So do you have any quick thoughts on donor recognition features that we can think about? All the ones in town that I know of take space.
Well, there's a bit of an opportunity, sorry, through your
Go
worship.
ahead.
I'm still learning. There is a bit of an opportunity with the wall that's associated with the vestibule. It's a short little bit of wall by the main entrance that we could develop as, if there's a desire for donor wall, we could develop it specifically for that purpose. And it'd be very, very prominent location. Just a thought.
Do you know of any use of floor space as a donor?
Yeah.
I mean, I think of the Hollywood stars on the sidewalk, you know, but I'm sure there are buildings that have done something comparable, maybe?
Yeah, certainly, we could do that too. I guess it depends on if we understand are we accommodating hundreds of names or dozens of names or 3 names? It makes a difference the way we think about it. So
Well, we've got 4 panels so far of our donors that we've listed their names, and in some cases, major donors, we've put pictures, but just names is what we'd be looking for, I think.
Yeah, I think there's ample opportunities to accommodate that.
Yeah. I guess another quick question, since we have time, you're still working on the sound. What about water for the classes that would be going on? I know teaching art is a very messy exercise, and where are the taps upstairs? Like, for example, are those 2 studio rooms going to have tubs and taps?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, we're proposing a small counter area and sink in each of the studio spaces, and as well on the ground floor in that kind of support space off of the foyer. We would like to have water access there as well to kind of service any sort of catering that might happen in the space.
Okay. And then toward the front, there's currently a staircase to the basement and another staircase upstairs. The staircase, maybe not the same stairs, but it looks like the staircase is going to survive, eh? It's in your final design?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. The stairs, we are proposing a bit of a modification to the configuration of them because we do have to go down to meet the revised floor level, and we don't want the stairs taking up more space than they have to. So they would be reconstructed, but would still provide stair access to the 2nd floor and the basement. We'd also like to make a feature of them somewhat. Again, bring some of that natural light in if possible. It's always nice to make the stairs visible to kind of encourage that use.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, is there any progress?
We can try again, and if it doesn't work, I'm at a loss, Madam Mayor.
Your worship, if I might, if we can't get through, Councillor Bergeron has sent me a few questions that he'd like to ask.
Yeah, he's been
I'd be more
texting
than
me as
willing to
well.
ask him on his behalf if we can't get through technically. So just throwing that out there.
Let's just test it again, Councillor Bergeron? Yeah. Okay. All right, so you did have questions. Are you okay with Councillor Hollingsworth asking those questions on your behalf? Thank you. Councillor
Okay,
Hollingsworth.
So first question is, will this have an impact on the level of funding we provide Altsville, i.e. is some of the revenue coming from, I assume, Altsville Theatre or potentially other places where we do theatre work? So are we going to channel some of the operating, if I get the question correctly, we're going to channel some of the operating money or to other theatre groups back to the theatre that we're going to operate here? I think that's what he's looking for.
Mr. Fothrop?
Close enough?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we don't see the activities that would take place at Altsville now would not necessarily take place in this theatre. It's a different type of venue that would host a different type of performance. So we don't see any productions moving venues to our location. Regarding the funding of Altsville Theatre ongoing, I guess that would be a decision of council in future budgets as to whether they choose to sustain the same level of funding.
Okay, so second question, Your Worship. No permanent offices for community groups. The impression Councillor Bergeron had was this was supposed to be a large part of the revenue and space within that. So there isn't, and I don't think, and doesn't seem to be any office space for outside agencies, and I thought we were gonna, or according to Councillor Bergeron, which I agree, we're gonna generate some revenue to rent space.
Mr. Fothrop, yeah.
Through you, Madam Mayor, as I mentioned before with the feasibility study that recommended the Civic Complex building was a much larger facility, and so it had suggested some permanent offices for use of some of these community groups to rent. We have similar offices for rent at the Benson Center for our sports community groups, but because we're on we have a fixed amount of space. Dedicating any kind of footprint permanently for office space for these community groups, it eats away at the programmable space and the community activities that could take place there. So that's why some decisions had to be made as to what amenities are removed, and that being one of them.
Okay, so last question, Your Worship, which I would have asked of myself. Are we being asked to vote tonight, or are we just receiving this report? Kind of because there doesn't seem to be a motion recommended or recommendation per se, so is this just an FYI session type of thing, or what are we
Madam
doing?
CIO. Yeah, sure. Madam CIO.
Through you, Madam Mayor, this is just an update and a presentation from our architects, so there's no motion that we're looking for tonight, or no debate. This is just an update on the work that's being done by the architects.
Okay, I don't see anything else, Your Worship. I hope I've done Councillor Bergeron's questions justice.
He seems satisfied. I'm just wondering now for Councillors Towndale and Duppel, if you have questions. And I have to apologize to all of you. This is not the best scenario. Sorry. Councillors Towndale and Councillor Duppel, do you want to text questions to me? You have my cell number as well. If you want to text questions, I can ask them as well, or I'm sure Councillor Hollingsworth would be okay. So please do that, and I will. Do you have any questions you want to text? Just let me know. Can you shake your heads? Councillor Towndale? No? Councillor Duppel? Okay. So I did have a couple of comments and a question. Thank you to all of council for your comments and your questions. It was very helpful. The steering committee was mentioned many times by Jennifer, and I appreciate that. I think that shows that there was a real working together, which is what we want to see, because we want to build something that really is a true reflection of what we need. So my question is about the building itself and what you thought as architects when you went through the building, how you feel about this building, because the previous council under former Mayor O'Shaughnessy went ahead and purchased the building, had a vision. I'm just wondering, do you feel that this is going to be a good space? The drawings look great, but as architects, how do you feel? There's been a lot of conversation around the the designated substances that have to be removed. If you can comment about what you feel as designers and architects of that space, what you envision, and any comment that you would have about making it a safe space would also be helpful. Martin or Jennifer?
I can speak a bit to it. I work on a lot of older buildings, and honestly, the designated substances are quite common in renovation projects, and it's just something that this is an opportunity to remove them, take them away safely, and give new life to the building. I think the the greatest aspect of the building, in my opinion, and I think it's shared by a lot of people, is the location. To have something like this so centrally located, the potential to support the neighboring buildings, neighboring businesses, by drawing more people to the area. I think that's fantastic. It's also really nice, this historic stone facade. It would be a shame to just take the whole thing down. I think the sensitive approach is to keep it. But as we looked farther into the building interior, the rest of the building, there isn't anything inherently special or historic about it. There's no like decorative moldings or anything really worth saving architecturally, as far as in my personal opinion. Initially, we struggled a little bit with the constraints, the size constraints, and the amount of function that we wanted to get out of the building, but through the research and the comments from the steering committee, the desire for it to be truly functional, that allowed us to create these open spaces and put the support spaces, minimize them in the most efficient way to achieve what we feel is a fairly successful resolution to the amount of spaces required. Do you have anything else?
Your worship, yes. But yeah, ditto. And like we have a really nice, tight little plan that is really super flexible. We're going to get some nice we call it black box theater, but it really is a multi-purpose room, and because of the way we've been able to introduce light like that, it's not going to feel like a typical hotel conference room kind of setting. It's good. So we've really been very conscious of the fact that it has to work really well as a theater, but also as a setting for all sorts of other kinds of events. And the way, what I think one of the great attributes of the arrangement of the plan is that the foyer and the multi-purpose room could, in some circumstances, be a setting for an even larger event where activities are happening in one space and the other at the same time. So I think it's working really well, and as Jen said, the location is great, and we're taking advantage of the sort of the dignity and character of that original facade to give a kind of gravitas to the Arts Centre as an important place in Cornwall.
Thank you for those additional comments. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Mr. Fothrop, for setting out a budget. I think to Councillor Bergeron's point, Altsville becomes something that is important, right? Because this is not Altsville. This is not going to speak to that need. Altsville definitely fills some other needs. So there are going to be complementary pieces of infrastructure for our arts sector in our community. Thank you for council comments around how we build here. We're a community of builders. Many of you are sitting around this table now, and this is part of that process. And it is very exciting to look at these plans and think about the future, particularly during a pandemic when we want to be able to move forward. So this is very helpful. Mr. Fothrop, I'm not surprised that the automotive room is so popular. I think that in this community there's always a need for rooms because there's so much human endeavor here. So many groups organizing and doing things. So I was never surprised by the popularity of that room, and I'm sure that this space will be as popular and in such a great location as Jennifer and Martin have highlighted. Councillor Bennett, yeah, we are confident in ourselves. This shows confidence. And yeah, it's going to be work in progress, as Councillor Grant said. Not everybody agrees. But that's the way things work when we're building things. So thank you very much for all of your work tonight in your presentation and for council questions. And I apologize once again to the councillors who are not able to speak tonight. I'm really sorry about that, and we are going to continue working on that. Thank you. Oh, Councillor Dupel has just texted. I just want to make sure. Yep, continuing struggles. Thank you, Councillor Dupel. Thank you for your patience. Councillor Towndale, your questions were answered, and you have a large number of questions for the strat plan. So we're going to try and work through that. You can continue to text me throughout the strat plan presentation, and we'll try and see if we can get that done. Okay. Thank you.